What's going on, FA Nation? Happy Thursday, one day away from the weekend. It's not like it matters for you, Steve, because you have been stuck inside this whole time anyway. So it must feel like the weekend regardless. But besides the cool weather, what's going on, brother? How's your day been?
So far so good. Like you said, I've been cooped up inside, so it's nice to have something to distract myself, and that's after all, that's one of the biggest reasons we do fantasy, right?
Right. And, I can't imagine, you've had much interaction with the outside world, so it must be good to see other people's faces, even though it's through the interwebs, because, you know, cold weather. I don't have to deal with it, but not gonna brag. But we do have a six game slate on tap. We have a ton of news today, primarily circling around the Dallas Mavericks. They made a
Wait,
trade
did
today.
something happen?
They did. Mark Cuban and James Dolan got together. They made a trade, and the trade was pretty big news because the Mavs traded got Kristaps Porzingis, Tim Hardaway, Courtney Lee, and Trey Burke, none of which will be active tonight. And they got rid of Dennis Smith, DeAndre Jordan, and Wesley Matthews. So none of those players will be accumulating points for tonight. So please don't put them in your lineups. Also, Luka Doncic is out. Now, Rick Carlisle has come out and said that 10 players will be active for tonight. Obviously, we did the math. There were 8 players on their roster, so 2 will be getting called up from the G League. We don't know who they are. We don't have any idea who the starting lineup is going to be. So we're going to try to break that down for you. There is some other news. LeBron was suddenly questionable or doubtful, and then he's now not playing again. But it is looking like he's trending towards playing very, very soon. I mean, he did go through some practice drills today. Kyle Kuzma, Josh Hart went through shoot around today. They're both questionable. Both are more on the probable side. DeMar DeRozan's probable. Avery Bradley, questionable. Reggie Bullock is also questionable. That, I think, does it for significant news. Tyreek Evans is out, and we found out that not Edmund Sumner is not starting. Corey Joseph is the one starting in place of Tyreek Evans tonight. And then Eric Bledsoe, Malcolm Brogdon, Sterling Brown, they're all active for tonight. They were all probable, but they're all active. But let's move on to Vegas, since that looks like it's really the end of the injury news as of now. And yep, so in terms of Vegas, the most interesting news is obviously Dallas Detroit, which is, it started at 2.5, or it started at 208 and the spread was 2.5. It's only moved down 2 points to 206 and has only moved up to 7. And Steve was kind of shocked by that, and so was I. Before, as we were getting on air, to hear it only go up 5.5 points, which is, strange. 4.5 points. But yeah, so it's only 7 there. So, we're going to load up on Dallas. Indiana, Orlando to start the night, 207.5, 3.5 point spread in favor of the Magic at home. Indiana on a back-to-back there. Milwaukee, Toronto, really juicy game. Started at 229 up to 232, 2.5 point spread. Brooklyn, San Antonio, 227.5, another juicy spread. San Antonio, 8-point favorites at home with DeMar DeRozan probable to return. Philly, Golden State, 240.5. Biggest total we have on the board tonight. 9.5 point favorites, Golden State. So, Vegas is kind of saying, hey, look, big total. We do see this game staying relatively close, and it's in Golden State. So I find that interesting. And then the second late night hammer, Lakers, Clippers, battle of the Staples Center teams, 229. Only a 4-point spread in favor of the Clippers. It was 7. It went down to 4. I'm not sure why. Most likely because Kyle Kuzma is going to play. So with that, Steve, do you have anything to let us know
I
here,
do.
buddy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I could do it by heart at this point because I've been telling you for close to a month now about the Fantasy Alarm Playbook Pro for life. if you want Fantasy Alarm forever, you've been hearing us talk about it, and you only have a few more days. The Super Bowl is almost here, and once it is, this deal goes away. So if you want to lock in Fantasy Alarm and all the seasonal and daily success that we've been having, you can lock us in the Playbook Pro for life for a one-time payment of just $297. So you lock in that savings less than $300, and that gets you special benefits like special contests, giveaways, and double prizes in all Fantasy Alarm contests. So if you want James, you want me, Howard Bender, the whole staff, we're gearing up for baseball. We've got every sport under the sun. And to get all of that for your lifetime, you just need to go to fantasyalarm.com/forever, and you can join the family today at fantasyalarm.com/forever.
It's really not much of a better deal. So, I mean, please do it. It's forever. It's not just one season. If you're starting to get into MMA, it doesn't matter. You're going to have it forever. So, great read there. So let's hop into the slate, Steve, since, it's only 6 games, but we have a ton of things to dissect here. Starting off at point guard, as always, we have Steph Curry and Ben Simmons right at the top. If you were to prioritize one, how would you lean? I'm currently leaning Curry, personally. Considering they're 9.5-point favorites, they're implied 125 points alone, the Warriors are tonight. 125. That is insane. So I'm currently leaning Curry. Do you agree, disagree? What are your thoughts?
I agree. I mean, I like them both. I'm not sure you can go wrong. And you kind of made the point before we got on. You want to load up on this game anyway, so I'm not going to talk you off of Simmons. But Curry, at home as the favorite, and just, I mean, he's Steph Curry. You don't need me to tell you how great he is.
Right. And that's obviously a big factor. I also think it benefits Curry when Draymond's on the floor because, just all the looks that he's going to get off Draymond Green passes is just, it's always been a thing. I think Kyle Lowry is decent at the middle tier. When we move on down, I actually prefer Rajon Rondo to Lowry. I prefer Rondo to Bledsoe to Collison. I think Rondo is a play for all formats tonight. Again, 36 minutes against Philly. So it's been 36, 42, 37 the last 3 games. Josh Hart didn't affect him at all. And Josh Hart played 35 minutes in that game. So it literally didn't impact him one bit. I'm going right back to the well here. The Clippers do not defend point guards. I mean, they don't defend really any position well at all. But, I mean, they don't especially defend point guards. They're 24th in the league in DVP. So I love Rajon Rondo here in the middle tier. Anyone else in this mid-tier really intrigue you? I mean, Dennis Smith obviously was the next best option. He was kind of a shoo-in for all formats, would have probably been the most chalky play on the slate with Luka out, but we don't get Dennis Smith Jr. anymore. So, do you have anybody else in the mid-tier, or do you want to just go talk about the value guys? Because there are a couple that we need to talk about.
I have a little bit of interest in Patrick Beverley, 40 fantasy points each of the last 2 games, probably just for a GPP, but I mean, if he obviously he has that kind of potential, and if he gets there again, it's going to be huge, but it's, I still don't trust him. He's the only guy for me.
So I do actually really enjoy Patrick Beverley tonight. He's only 5,300 on DraftKings. And, 4 of the last 6 games, we've gotten 35-plus fantasy points. And I think my interest grows even more if Avery Bradley ends up sitting, because then their guard rotation is Patrick Beverley, Gilgeous-Alexander, and Lou Williams. And that's it. And they're all going to play 35-plus minutes. And we're getting Beverley playing 38 minutes. We're getting the rebounds, which is kind of insane. If you look at his last 7 games, 7, 12, 9, 6, 6, 10, 10. We know he's a good defender. He's contributing there. We know, he's a good passer, 6, 8, 5 assists his last 3 games. So I really like him. I think Shabazz Napier is another tournament play. I hate the price tag. I really don't like looking at this price tag for Shabazz, but the production's been there. The minutes have been there. He's taken on Spencer Dinwiddie's role. So I do think Napier's fine. But Corey Joseph, Gilgeous-Alexander, Bradley Sitz, Jalen Brunson. Those are the three guys. And I'll even throw TJ McConnell in there because, I think he matches up well in this matchup. I think he could see the floor a lot guarding Steph Curry here. I think those four are going to be very, not chalky. Like, obviously, Brunson's going to be chalk. That's undoubtedly going to be the chalk play of the slate. You don't fade Jalen Brunson in almost any situation unless we find out, like, maybe it's like, oh, Devin Harris is going to start, not Jalen Brunson. Then maybe, but I alluded to something to you before we got on and something to the chat that Devin Harris has played over 20 minutes once this year. It was in November. It was 2 months ago, almost to the day, November 30th. So can we trust that? I don't think so. Jalen Brunson's going to play all the minutes he can handle with all these guys gone, all the Knicks players coming. So I think Jalen Brunson is just a lock and load play for me. Do you agree, Steve?
I do.
And what do you think of Corey Joseph starting tonight? Does that intrigue you at all? I mean, he's been a part of the rotation regardless, but he tends to be a stand in the corner guy at times. I don't know if we need to go there. I don't think we need to prioritize him. Yeah, I would like to see the ownership projection on him prior to the slate locking before I commit in like a cash game. Right now, he just seems more of a GPP play to me.
Yeah, I mean, just because he's going to start doesn't necessarily mean he's going to play more minutes. So, I mean, and like you said, he's not going to handle the ball a ton. I mean, I'd like him more if Darren Collison was going to be out, but he's definitely someone to keep on your radar. But there are other cheap options in tonight's slate.
Right, and those cheap options are Gilgeous-Alexander in a tournament, TJ McConnell in a tournament, and obviously Jalen Brunson. And I will just throw Devin Harris' name out there because he's 3-1, $100 off min salary. Again, Rick Carlisle said 10 guys will be active, but who's to say these 10 guys are going to play? We can't confirm that. So,
and Devin Harris. Devin Harris is probably their best shot creator outside of Harrison Barnes. So even if he only plays 20 minutes, he might still, he could still get you enough points to be worthwhile.
It's true. Again, I'm not saying Devin Harris isn't a good play. I'm just, especially in cash, I'm going to prioritize Jalen Brunson over Devin Harris.
Totally.
I think we're time to move on to shooting guard, where we see D'Angelo Russell, DeMar DeRozan, Jimmy Butler at the top. If you were to rank them 1 through 3, how would you rank them? I personally would go Butler, Russell, DeRozan. But I don't think any of them are bad plays, and I think DeRozan is really the off-the-board GPP play, considering he's missed 3 straight games. But how would you rank them, Steve?
Probably the same. Russell, it depends a little bit. I'd have Russell ahead of DeRozan in a GPP. I mean, I do like DeRozan for GPP as well. I just think Russell, you can't trust the minutes. If we knew he was going to play 35 minutes, I'd have him number 1. But, 35 last game, 26, 24 before that. So you just can't really trust them. I mean, DeRozan makes me a little nervous after 3 missed games, but at home, I feel pretty confident. And then Jimmy Butler, it is still pretty. His price is up a little bit on DraftKings, but down a little bit on FanDuel. And he was really impressive in his last game, and I don't see any reason to think this would be any different. Right,
and it's a 240 total in that game ultimately. Mm-hmm. So you really do want to get as much exposure here as you can.
Right.
I kind of think you're ranking them the same way I had them. So let's move on. I think Lou Williams. And I think you'll agree with me, is one of the best GPP plays on this slate, considering the Lakers ranked dead last against shooting guards. Lou Will is coming off 2 terrible shooting performances that have resulted in 38 and 40 fantasy points. So, I mean, let's say these shots go in, we could see a 60-point game, which we saw against Chicago not too long ago. So, especially if Avery Bradley's out, we're actually going to see Lou Williams play minutes I think if Bradley were to be ruled out, which obviously we're not going to know because it's a 10:30 game, but if for some reason Doc Rivers came out and said Bradley wasn't going to play before lock, I'd almost consider Lou Williams in a cash game. That's how confident I'd be in him, just because they don't have depth at the guard position. One of my favorite plays of the slate, and it's literally a salary thing, is Klay Thompson on DraftKings. Obviously he hasn't been great, and there have been times, like 2 out of the last 3 games, he's scored us 24 and 18 fantasy points. But he has $5,800. He is a guy who can make 10 threes before we like even sit on our couch and turn the game on. And this is another situation where I'm going to say, hey, it's a 240 total, and this guy is someone who averages 22 actual points a game. Yes, the peripherals are down because he has Draymond and Boogie and Steph and Durant racking them all up, but who's to say Klay isn't going to go out there and give us 40 actual points tonight? Nobody can say that. So from a salary standpoint, I think he's one of the best per dollar plays on the slate. Moving down, shooting guard, it gets a little bleak for me. Do you like either of the Magic guys in Ross or Fournier?
No, I mean, they're fine.
I liked Fournier more earlier in the day, and I do think he's fine for like a cash game. I don't think he's priced too highly, and he's going to play 30 minutes in regardless of scenario. 30 is kind of like the floor too, so I'm okay with Fournier in a cash game. Terrence Ross for GPPs, they're both okay. But moving down, I do think we did exclude someone at point guard, and I just want to circle back real quick. He's point guard, shooting guard, eligible on DK, and that's Reggie Jackson, who is going to be without Ish Smith tonight. And that was a simple oversight on my behalf, on both of our behalves. Jackson's minutes, 30, 35, 37 the last 3 games. The fantasy points have correlated as well, 29, 30, 39. So, the trended minutes have been a trend in fantasy production as well. And tonight, we mentioned Dallas has nobody. So, I want to load up on this game. Obviously, we're going to load up from the Dallas side, but I think it would be smart to also get some Detroit exposure. And at shooting guard, we have a guy in Luke Kennard on the Detroit side who, one, could end up seeing a lion's share of the minutes if Reggie Bullock is out. And even if Reggie Bullock plays and this game becomes a blowout, he'll see minutes regardless. So I think Luke Kennard is kind of just an option regardless because, again, it's in a blowout, he plays. If Reggie Bullock sits, he plays. Glenn Robinson is going to start and play, 10 minutes again? And Langston Galloway is going to start and play 15 minutes again. So I love Luke Kennard down here at the value tier. I'm really sold on him. I've kind of been sold on him on multiple occasions this year. Anyone else you have interest in at shooting guard? Are you ready to move on to small forward, Steve?
I'm mildly interested in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and if for some reason we get news about Josh Hart, I'd be a little bit more interested. But like you said, the Clippers give up a lot of fantasy points to just about every position, so he's should probably keep on your radar.
Yeah, and I'd actually lean Hart if he plays, but I understand the KCP call if Hart sits. But again, it's going to be one of those things we're not going to find out. So if you do want to take a shot on one of the two, I would suggest playing them on DK or using them as your drop on FanDuel. One of the two, one of those two. So let's move on to small forward where we have 3 big names, and it's Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant. I think Giannis is the best play of the 3. But I will also not fault you for fading him for either Durant or Leonard. We've talked about the 240 total all night. I think Ben Simmons, as athletic as he is, won't be able to contain Durant off the dribble specifically. A 7-foot guard is very rare, and that's what Durant is. And, it just doesn't happen in the NBA. And it's going to be hard for Simmons to contain him. I think Kawhi is fine. I think he's the one that goes overlooked. So if you want to play it from that perspective, I think that's an excellent call, right? I mean, Giannis is likely going to get all the ownership. Durant's going to get all the ownership. Kawhi is just kind of sitting there like, hey, man, I've averaged 50 points a game against the Bucks this year. What about me?
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on this next tier? I mean, we have guys like Tobias Harris, we have Brandon Ingram, who again now might be without Kyle Kuzma. I know they did participate in the shoot around. And then Rudy Gay. Like, do you like any of them? I mean, Tobias Harris, no Danilo Gallinari again, has got to be enticing, right?
Yes, no Danilo Gallinari. I mean, you're getting what you pay for at this point. But I still like Tobias Harris. I mean, he's safe, I think, for cash games for sure. But really at small forward, I'm pretty much, if I'm not paying for the top three, I'm probably playing the Dallas guys. There's not a whole lot else I like. I'm interested to hear what you think.
Yeah, I tend to agree as well. I mean, I think the majority of lineups, especially cash games, have 3 to 4 Mavericks in it. And I would be okay going 4 tonight, just considering that these guys are going to have to play. So I'm with you. I think Harrison Barnes was the first guy I put in my lineup. And it's because he's going to have all the opportunity to shoot the ball. Dorian Finney-Smith was the other guy you were alluding to. I think he's firmly in play. We have a position discrepancy from DraftKings to FanDuel on Ryan Broekhoff, who is shooting guard, small forward on DK, but he's power forward eligible on FanDuel. So, if you want to mention Broekhoff now, we'll just do it because he's another Mavs guy. I think Barnes, Finney-Smith are cash game plays. You could play them in any format. And I think Broekhoff is specifically specifically a tournament play, because I could actually see him garnering a lot of run at shooting guard tonight because they don't have many options. And he can spread the floor unlike Finney-Smith can. So with that, I do think Broekhoff is kind of in play.
Yeah, I think that's a great point.
So as just circling back to Rudy Gay, I think he's firmly in play. No back-to-back. I love Rudy Gay when there's no back-to-backs. We know he's going to play minutes. I mean, 3 of the last 4, he's given us 30 plus, which is very encouraging. I think that, it's really hard for me not to like Brandon Ingram as well. Coming off a 36 actual point game, he's gone over 32 fantasy points in 3 straight, 20 actual points or more in 3 straight. So if we get no Kuzma again, I think he's someone that, you have him and Rondo. Maybe you put one in a utility. You keep $300 left over. If Kuzma's ruled out, I might lean Ingram over Rondo in a tournament. Just something to consider. The rest of small forward, though, I don't think we really need to look anywhere. I mean, I saw a lot of talk and chatter about 2 guys from the Spurs and Bellinelli and Bertans tonight. People are, I guess, overlooking the fact, yes, they've been great lately. No, undoubtedly they've been great. They didn't have DeMar DeRozan. Right. And they're not going to all of a sudden play over DeMar DeRozan. Like, DeMar DeRozan is their guy. It's DeRozan, it's Aldridge. Those are their 2 guys. So, if you want to play him in like, a 150 max where you're putting 10, 20, 30 lineups in there, fine. But other than that, I don't have interest in them, and I'm ready to move on to power forward.
Let's do it.
At the top, Blake Griffin is the top priced power forward, but I personally am prioritizing LaMarcus Aldridge over almost everyone on this slate. Especially on DraftKings where he's 8-3.
Oh, yeah.
It's centers against Brooklyn, guys. And we've been, for all our new listeners, we have touted this spot in every slate. And honestly, it's really hasn't let us down too often. Obviously, when there's centers that aren't active and don't play, sure, we don't play them. But LaMarcus Aldridge, although listed as power forward, is their starting center when their whole lineup is healthy. When DeMar DeRozan is back, they start the Forbes, White, DeRozan in the backcourt, and they start Gay, and they start Aldridge in the front court, which means LaMarcus Aldridge versus Jared Allen doesn't get much better than that, and he's just criminally priced on DraftKings. I still am paying for him on FanDuel in tournaments, but it is lock and load all formats for me at $8,300 on DraftKings. Now, I guess the question is, now that these Dallas guys are out, do you think we can now put Blake on that same pedestal as Aldridge, or are you still in camp Aldridge with me, Steve?
I'm still in camp Aldridge with you. Blake is $300 less on FanDuel, so that on FanDuel it's a little bit different. I mean,
Right.
I don't think there's any comparison on DraftKings just with the price difference.
Right.
And I'm not, it didn't sound like you were entirely sold on the 7-point spread, and I'm certainly not. So, I mean, maybe Vegas knows something that we don't. I mean, before we started talking, before we went on the air, I was kind of leaning towards stay away from Detroit, and you've definitely talked me out of that. But I'd be lying if I said I was completely comfortable. I mean, Blake might only play 23 minutes in that game. They could be winning by 40 by halftime.
All right. So in that situation, I think you just limit Blake to tournaments, and I guess it is going to be. We're going to get to center, and people are going to say, well, you just said he's a tournament-only play. Why are you calling Andre Drummond a cash play? I'll leave that on a cliffhanger until we get there. But I do agree. I think Blake is a tournament play, a very good one at that, because if this game does stay close, he obviously has tremendous potential. So I still prioritize Aldridge. But going down, I think if Kuzma's in play, I think he's far too cheap on FanDuel at 6,200. I even think he's too cheap on DraftKings at 6,900. I think he's a really good play on both sites. Montrezl Harrell, tournaments only. We know that. Aaron Gordon, another guy, tournaments only. We know that. You'd be silly to play him in cash. I've already fell for that trap once. And then we get to a trio of guys that I think we can almost play in all formats, but I want to get your take. Draymond Green, Pascal Siakam, Serge Ibaka. They're all priced 62 or 61 on DK. They're all priced about the same on FanDuel, if I remember correctly, as well. I think Draymond's 72, Serge is like 70, and I want to say Siakam is 65.
On DraftKings?
FanDuel.
I was looking at the wrong site, so don't. 65 for Siakam, 7,000 for Ibaka. You were correct.
And 72 for Green.
Yep.
Do you think all of them are cash viable tonight?
I think so. I mean, especially the Toronto guys. Milwaukee, surprisingly enough, for as good as they are defensively, is 28th in points allowed to opposing power forwards. We've seen Toronto put up a lot of points against Milwaukee in their 3 meetings, and Serge alone is averaging 45 fantasy points against Milwaukee. So I agree with you. All 3 of those guys for cash, for sure.
Yeah, and they're both averaging over 40 against Milwaukee, which, again, you said 28th against points allowed. They're also 27th in DVP. It's a really good matchup. Plus, that total has grown from 229 to 232, which, again, is very interesting considering they're 2 of the better defensive teams in basketball. So I think that's worth noting. I love Draymond at 6'2" on DraftKings, I'm not going to lie. He's been everything we've wanted and more since the arrival of DeMarcus Cousins. The scoring, obviously, is not there, but the rebounding hasn't taken a hit, and the assists have only grown. So I think all 3 are really strong plays. After that, again, I think we don't need to go much place else but the Dallas guys. And Maxi Kleber and Dwight Powell. Right now, some sites are projecting Dwight Powell to start. But as we were talking about on air or off air, I mean, Maxi Kleber has been the guy who's started on multiple occasions this year, not Dwight Powell. So it kind of surprised me to see Dwight Powell as a projected starter over Kleber. Luckily for us, the game is at 7. So we're going to know, or we should know, prior to the game, who is the starting 5. Let's say they're both starting, Steve. Let's say they just run them both out and they're both starting. Would you who would you prioritize in that situation, Powell or Kleber?
Probably Kleber. I mean, my thought on Kleber is I like him better if he starts at center. I almost don't care who the power forward is at that point. And Kleber, he's not a great outside shooter, but at least he'll take outside shots, and I feel like that's going to be lacking for this team. Like you mentioned with Brokoff, that they just need some guys that can spot up and give Harrison Barnes a little bit of room to operate, and so I think Kleber checks that box for me.
So, what if I were to tell you with Doncic, Dennis Smith Jr., and JJ Barea off the floor this year, Maxi Kleber had a .75 fantasy point per minute output, and Dwight Powell had a 1.13. Would that change your mind at all, or would you still lean Kleber?
No, that I did not know that or expect that. And I, they're both strong plays, but yeah, I'm totally fine going to Powell in that situation.
And I think I would too. I'm also fine with it. I'd almost like if they were both starting, I would both almost say screw it, let's play them both in cash.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I think that's all at power forward. Do you agree? Ready to move on? Finish this out. I'll throw around Rondé Hollis Jefferson. If he's starting, I think he is an intriguing option. I think he matches up fine with Rudy Gay because Hollis Jefferson's 6'7", Gay's only 6'8", so I think that matchup is fine for him. Moving on to center is a very weak position, but it got stronger because obviously this Dallas news. There's no DeAndre Jordan, so we have Embiid at the top, who I don't love his price on FanDuel at 11.6, but I love his price tag on DraftKings at just 10.1. I think it's too cheap. We know the Warriors are exploitable at the center position. They have been for the last 3 years. And DeMarcus Cousins isn't going to change that. It's not like DeMarcus Cousins, yes, is a big body. But what DeMarcus Cousins isn't is a very good post defender. So I do think Joel Embiid will have his way as long as they can stay out of foul trouble against one another and don't get thrown out for just being Joel Embiid and DeMarcus Cousins pretty much. But after that, it gets really intriguing because I alluded to it earlier where I said I think Andre Drummond is a cash play, which is kind of contradicting myself because I said Blake isn't. But Blake isn't the one that's going to be matched up with someone who's going to be 6'9" or smaller. Andre Drummond's that guy. And yes, he went for 23 and 15 against this team just a few days ago. Actually last week against DeAndre Jordan. So what is he going to do to the likes of Maxi Kleber, to the likes of a foul-happy Salah Mejri if Mejri gets on the floor, to Dirk Nowitzki who can't move his feet? So, he's also $8,100 on DraftKings. So it's very hard not for me not to like Drummond in all formats. I don't think 40 is out of the question by half. By half. That's what we're looking for. 8,100, we're looking for about 41 fantasy points. I literally believe Drummond can get that by half.
Oh, yeah, totally agree. 20 rebounds alone by halftime is totally doable in this situation.
Which leads me to the rest of the center, and it's ugly.
And that's the other reason to play him in cash because the rest of the position kind of sucks.
Right, and on FanDuel, 11.6 for Joel Embiid is very hard to spend for a cash game. It's very hard to stomach when you could just save $2,000, over $2,400, and go get Drummond. So, I am prioritizing Andre Drummond a lot tonight, especially in cash. The rest of the center position, especially on DraftKings, we don't really need to worry about it because we could just plug in guys that play power forward. Mm-hmm. But if you are playing FanDuel, guys like DeMarcus Cousins, obviously we're going to wait on the word if his minutes restriction has gone up. If it's up to 30, I think that's definitely something that we should consider for any format because, DeMarcus Cousins has been an elite fantasy producer as is at 24 minutes, 25 minutes. So I can't imagine what he's going to be at 30. So I think he's firmly in play. I think Miles Turner only for tournaments. Then it's like Brook Lopez, who I think is okay for tournaments. And then if you want to get really crazy, one of the Lakers guys. And then if you want to get even crazier, Kevin Looney if DeMarcus Cousins still only playing 25 minutes. Do you have anyone else, or does that about do it, Steve?
No, I think I like Salah Mejri slightly more than you do, but unless he starts, there's probably no reason to play him instead of Kleber or Powell.
Yeah, so I think you can. I'm not saying you can't because we have seen Salah Mejri in 15-minute, put up 30 fantasy points in the past. He's also very foul happy, which is very scary and very worrisome. So that's really what scares me. And plus, he's only played over 10 minutes twice the whole year. And one of those was 10 minutes exactly. So Just like one more final thought, I think we should just touch on the Mavericks just alone one more time. And what I think we need to do is we need to prioritize them tonight. And I know everyone's going to be, and we got to be contrarian, got to be contrarian. I don't think this is the night because I don't think there's enough on Dallas to really trust. So I think Jalen Brunson is priority number one. Well, him and Harrison Barnes are 1A, 1B for me tonight. And then depending on the Dwight Powell and Maxi Kleber news is how I will prioritize next. I think Dorian Finney-Smith is an excellent cash game play. Ryan Brokoff is a very good tournament play along with the backup of Dwight Powell, Maxi Kleber. And I also think you can throw Devin Harris in that equation too as a solid GPP play because he's min salary. Do you have any final thoughts on that situation, or do you think I just pretty much touched on all of it?
I think you summed it up, and we've said a couple times, a lot of it depends on what the starting lineup looks like. That'll give us a better idea of who's going to get. I mean, they're all going to get minutes, but who's going to really get the minutes? And with 20 minutes to go, we should get word, and we'll be in the subscriber chat, updating accordingly.
Yep. Steve said it. We'll be in chat for the next 20 minutes. Lineups are out. Pivots will be coming out. Obviously, nothing is finished yet because we don't know the Dallas news. And once that comes out, I'll start them now, but pivots will be coming out. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks, Matt Sells, for producing. First time I've actually given you a shout out. You should be proud of me, Matt. But with that, we are out. Good luck tonight, guys. Peace.
Good night.